Okay, so we're in the middle of this of Lakel Baruch Mositenu, and we did the last week the Shalom about the various different things here which are mentioned. Starting from Kibadel Pel Gvoros, Chadoshos, Bar Mechamos, Etzakos, Metzmichos, Pevos, Osios, Levos. Now let's go down to here to Machadish B'tu B'Chayin to Maaseh Bereshis. So really, this is an important part of davening that we say that Machadish B'tu B'Chayin to Maaseh Bereshis. Hashem, in His goodness, every day is Machadish to Maaseh Bereshis. In other words, every day is a fresh day. Meaning, there are two meanings for this. One is the Kabbalistic meaning. The meaning of Kabbalah is that every day HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates the Bria from nothingness, as if it's a brand new Bria, because the Bria cannot exist if not for HaKadosh Baruch Hu sustaining it, like we explained when we spoke about Makom Makom Olam, that He's the Makom of the world. But besides that, there's an idea that every day is a new start. Like Chazal say, so one of the great causes for yush, for despair in this world, is that people think, well, we tried everything before, it was no use, everything is the same old, and therefore, what good is it going to do today to try to do things differently? It's just going to be more of the same. So therefore, we say that everything is like new every day. And we're going to come back to that theme later and get to Shema. So, and we bring back this up with the pasuk Kamur, like it says, Lo seig dorim dolim ki olam chazdo. Kodesh Baruch Hu is osei orim dolim. It's not that He was asa. It was just in the past, it would say Lo asa orim dolim. He made the great lights. No, it's osei. Every day, it's an ongoing process. Okay, and then we say. Now, Or Chadash Al Tzion Ta'ir is a continuation of that. In other words, okay, every day is a new light, but there's eventually going to be a huge new light, the Or of the Geula, and that's Or Chadash Al Tzion Ta'ir. When that light comes, that's the ultimate light of Tikkun in this world. So, let's see here on Anaf Yosef, he says. Lo sering dolim kulei burchat Hashem HaMe'oros. Kasem sefer kara kemach. It's Rabbeinu Chaye Daf Yud. Benusa atilos habrachos of Kriya Shema. When we say the brachos of Kriya Shema, umaskirim HaMe'oros tefila. We mentioned first the HaMe'oros, which is the sun, the moon, and the stars. Omrim burchat Hashem Yotzer HaMe'oros. We say bracha. The samich lei, and in the next bracha of Ahavah Rabbah, we say v'ayin enam b'sorasecha da'abek libeinu mitzvosecha. So we mentioned HaKadosh Baruch should illuminate our eyes with the Torah and cause our hearts to connect to the mitzvahs. It says that everything which takes place in the world takes place below the sun, not above the sun. In other words, everything a person does obviously is in this world, not in Olam Haba, at least not till much later on in history. But avos Torah mitzvahs hu al hashemesh. But the schus of Torah mitzvahs is l'mala min hashemesh. It's really a medrash in Shir Hashirim Rabbah that says the it's in Shir Hashirim, I think it's in Koheles. It says Ma Yisrael l'adam b'chol malo sheyamo tachas hashemesh. Pasuk says in Koheles, what advantage does a person have in all that he toils underneath the sun? So Chazal say. Below the sun, there is no advantage, but above the sun, there is an advantage. What does it mean above the sun, there's an advantage? It means that there's certain things which are skuyos, which are merits, which transcend this world. They're not tachas hashemesh, but they reach above the shemesh. In other words, they are netzach, they're eternal. As he says, the sun and the Torah and mitzvahs are mentioned one mizmor daily. It says that we say this in the Psukim Zimmer Shabbos morning. Hashem made for a tent for the sun in this world. Torah Hashem Tamima. After we say the Torah Hashem is whole, Mitzvah Hashem Bar and Mitzvah Hashem is clear. Levar to explain Kimas Torah Mitzvahs Vaschus Sheba, that the advantage of Torah Mitzvahs and the merit which you get through Torah Mitzvahs will amalim in Hashemesh. It's above the sun. So therefore, it first says the sun, which is the great luminary, which of course causes the light also for the moon. But there, Sas Rachav, and tells a little bit about the sun over there in that Mizmor Tehillim. And then afterwards it says, Od Ma'or Gadol Mimenu. There's a greater light, which is the Or Torah Mitzvahs. Zagaki Kamaras Misajre Tfilos. That's also why when they arrange the tefillah, they arrange it in this order. HaMe'oros. First, they talk in this bracha, which we're finishing here, about the physical light. And then afterwards, in Ahavah Rabbah, we talk about Torah Mitzvahs. Then we go on to the light of Torah and light of Mitzvahs. This tells that the light of Torah Mitzvahs is very great, much greater than the physical light of the sun and the moon and the stars. It is the highest light. There's no way for a person to be saved, no strategy. A person is saving himself from the darkness of natural things here under the sun. Unless he fulfills the Torah mitzvahs, which are above the sun. So that he's explaining here the minhag of saying first the word Chazal Masakim for us is minhag to say first the bracha of Yotzer HaMe'oros, which goes on the physical lights, and then the bracha of Ahavah Rabbah, which goes on the light of Torah mitzvahs. Also by Mar, we have the same thing. The first bracha Ma'ariv Aravim is talking about the changing of the night and the day, but the change of the night and day in the physical light of the sun and the moon, the sun versus the moon and the stars. And then the second bracha, Ahavah Solam Avton Hashem Elokeinu, there it talks about Torah mitzvos chukim mishpatim osan limadata. So there's a deliberate ascent going up from the light of the physical world to the light of Torah mitzvahs in both the Birchos Shema in the morning and the Birchos Shema in the evening as well. So then we say, of course, as I said, Or Chadash Al Tzion Tahir. Not everybody says Or Chadash Al Tzion Tahir. He says that he brings out here in the bottom in the Iyun Tefillah also. Tikkun Tefillah brings down. Rabbeinu Tzidkei Rova Yishmeli Aget Leket Iyun Tefillah Sum Yam You've given what such a Shem Rabbeinu Sadiagon Zatzal Shema Shemim Or Chadash Al Tzion Tahir B'chos Min Yotzer HaMe'oros Tusa B'Yada. It's not. It's a mistake. Why is it a mistake? Because you have a principle that any bracha, immediately before the bracha, you have to say something which is me'ein chasima, something which has to do with the ending, the signature of the bracha. And the whole bracha and the chasima, the signature, are about the lights in this world, right? The sun and the moon and the stars. Why would you bring in all of a sudden Or Chadash Al Tzion Tahir, which is a spiritual light, and it's not a light of this world, it's light of the world to come. So therefore, it's many authorities, including Sadigon, say that it's not appropriate to say this here, right? It's a toast. Because this bracha, which we say Yotzer HaMe'oros, it's not on the eventual future of light of Mashiach. It's on light which we see every day. And as he explains, I just said in the presence here, Perush the Kaimalam of Sachim Kufay. You have to say something which is like the signature of the bracha, immediately before the signature of the bracha. It also has to be that it's like the opening of the bracha. In other words, the line before the end of the bracha, it's kind of like the punchline. It's got to resemble what you're going to say in the signature, in the Baruch HaTosh at the end. It also has to resemble what you said in the beginning. In this case, Yotzer are very choshech, obviously. Or Dash Al Tzion Tahir doesn't like to do with the or of this world. whoever, I guess the brother, Shibali Aket Leket, Nun Reish Vav, as Rosh Hashanah, for Nacher Rachmano Parking, the God watch him and preserve it. For obviously when Shibali Leket was writing this, Binyamin Arofi, his brother, was alive. It says we don't silence a person who says Orchadash Al Tzionti. We don't make a bracha in the future. But in light which we see now. But Hashem promised us that He's going to expand this light. He's going to renew this light. Sifa, of course, Shivas Yomim, and make it like the light of the first 7 days of creation. Zel Perush, and this is what it means to say according to us who do say it. Zel Perush or this light. Which you're eventually going to renew. Sifbo road, add to its lights. To ear out Sion, illuminate with it on Sion, Niz Kilo Oro, and will merit its light. And it's similar to the Chasima in that is this light, but it's going to be made more powerful. Still, Barash B'Tshuva Cloud Dalit, Kasab, Simnachov, Kasab, Hatzor Fatim, the French rabbis, Enemy Barchadash Atzir, Kienze, Lome and Chasima, Lome and Psicha, it's not, doesn't have to do with the signature nor the beginning of the bracha. Vanil Meshmein Psicha B'Chasima, I say it is. The Rosh disagrees with the French rabbis. Yotzer Hainu Or Shabarak Kosh Baruch Hu Sheish Mei Gracious. Because the Yotzer refers to the light which Kosh Baruch created in 6 days creation. V'lo Yolam Kadai Lishtamish Bo, and it wasn't worthy for the world to use it. It was too powerful, too holy. Constant Tzadikim Mosilabo, so he hid it away from the Tzadikim for the world to come. And Orchadash Sheish Mei Gracious, Shasira Kosh Baruch Hu L'Chadesh Lanu. This is the light of the 6 days creation, which Kosh Baruch is going to bring back to us. So basically, it's the same answer. In other words, that this light, okay, it's not the light of now, but it's something which is going to be eventually the more powerful light is going to be the light in this world. It's not just a spiritual light; it also refers to eventual more powerful physical light. So let's see what he himself says. He says here, "Believe Yomer Li." My heart says. It's not the light of the world to come. He says, no, it's really the light which we have every day, which gets every day. This is this is said in a manner of a I don't even know, in a poetic metaphor. Poetic metaphor. This refers to the great metaphor of the lofty poet, Rabbi Meir Shliach Tzibor Vermaiza. Meir, who is evidently the chazan in the kila of Vermaiza, Worms in France. This actually is one of the keynotes we say on Tisha B'Av. I think Rabbi Meir here is the Marami Rutenberg, but I'm not 100% sure about that. In Shali Sufa B'Eish is a keynote which you say on the burning of the manuscripts of Torah in Paris in 1242. At Mama'od, so there he writes in this keynote, which is in Tisha B'Av, I'm astonished. I'm Orayom Asher Yizrach El Kol. I'm astonished at the light of day, which illuminates for everybody. Avichshach Elai Ve'elayich. But it's dark for me and for you. For me meaning Am Yisrael, you meaning the Torah. I don't know what it says exactly, but some of you, the people are going in a state of anguish, of suffering, in Golus. We can't have full benefit of the sun because the sun, it's when a Golus, it's not literal choshech, but it's a form of choshech. And right now, in Golus, it's choshech. And so he asks this for this new light. This light which you're making new anyway, every day, right? It's a new light, not the light of Shevis and Shema and Meibresh. It's only going to come to the world to come. No, the new light which you make anyway every day. For me, it's dark right now because of Golus. So make light for us too. The rest of the world has pleasure from the light because they don't feel themselves in Golus. we don't have pleasure from today's light the same way we could because we have the sense of being golos. So make that light new for us. Not the Shefa, she has the light of the sixth inspiration, the light which you have every day. Make it new for us in a way that we can truly enjoy it because it's going to be a new light on Sion as well. Okay, that's so this according to this is not when Mashiach comes and the special light comes out from Shivas Mebrachis, but even perhaps when Mashiach comes, but when it's going to just this regular light, you'll be able to have more pleasure from it when we're in a state of gula as opposed to a state of golus. Okay, so that's Nizchil HaMe'oros. Bruchat to Hashem, Yotzer HaMe'oros. And then we say Yotzer HaMe'oros. Obviously, that this brings bracha together. That Hashem create any light which creates and exists in this world, whether it's the light of the sun, the moon, or the stars, or Torah and mitzvahs, or kedusha, all of that Hashem created all of that, and we give Him praise for that. Okay, now we go to get to the second bracha, Kriya Birchas Kiyashma. So let's see the introduction here from the Besamim Rosh. Birchas Ahavah Rabbah, Tzarech Lechavim Ba'arbe. The bracha of Ahavah Rabbah requires a lot of kavanah, or you must have a lot of kavanah. Sheklas Dvarim Rabbi. It includes many, many different things. Yichud Inyan Nesinas Torah, especially the matter of giving the Torah Kedosha, HaMe'oros Sono Latzlacha Amitis, which brings us to true success. Urav Tuv Hatzofun. Eventually, to the great good which is hidden away from the tzaddik. Asher came by Avasan Nishget Ami. Therefore, we're always going to be totally immersed, literally crazy. So in its love, is like shigaon, right? Craziness. In other words, it's going to drive us crazy, so to speak. So it's so powerful. So Hashem Yisbarach, we daven to Hashem, shiftach libeinu, to open our heart, lavino la'askil b'amito, to understand and to become more intelligent with His truth. Shaloni gallery. We shouldn't toil for nothing. In other words, we should actually accomplish and win our toil. Vitabli bein avasav yiraso, and Hashem should place within us His love and His fear. Yachet shmo ba'ava. He should unify Hashem's name. In other words, we should proclaim Hashem's unity and see Hashem's hashgacha in everything. When we go to Malas brachazu, and because this bracha is such a phenomenal bracha, it's halacha. I don't know if they taught you this halacha, that if a person forgets to make birchas haTorah in the morning, so they can be yotze with Ahavah Rabbah. In other words, you're supposed to make a birchas haTorah before you learn. If you forgot to make a birchas haTorah in the morning for some reason, so then you can be yotze birchas haTorah with Ahavah Rabbah, because it has a very similar idea to birchas haTorah. That we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving the Torah mitzvahs, and we want to ask Him to illuminate our eyes in Torah mitzvahs. Upoteres mashiyamot achrei miyad. The halacha is if you want to be yotze birchas Torah with Ahavah Rabbah, then immediately after Shemona Esrei you're supposed to learn some Torah. It's the closest you can get. Obviously, you're not supposed to make a hefsek in the middle of davening. But after Shemona Esrei you're supposed to learn some Torah. Just like immediately after we say birchas Torah in the morning, we say V'rech Hashem Yishmerecha and Elu Dvarim, in order you should be able to learn Torah right after the bracha, because it's like since a bracha on Torah, you should really learn from Torah right after the bracha. Here too, although you can't learn Torah right away, because you have to say Shema and Shemona Esrei, but immediately after Shema and Shemona Esrei, you should say you learn from Torah if you want to fulfill the obligation because of Torah with Ahavah Rabbah. B'somchol b'yachas Ahavah Yotzer HaMe'oros, and again, like we saw just now, Tikkun Tefillah or Yom Tefillah. It exempts, it's right next to Yotzer HaMe'oros, Matan Torah, because it commemorates the giving of the Torah, which is more light than any of the other sources of light. Just again, like we just saw in the Yom Tefillah, right after it says, Hashemayim Mesaprim Fokel, right, which is where he speaks about the sun and the moon, etc. Then afterwards he says, after he says the heavens tell of the glory of God, my Torah is Hashem to you. It says Torah of Hashem is Mitzvah Hashem Barim is the name. So Hashem is clear and illuminates us. So actually, it's a big machlokus, and you'll see if you go to shul, There are some people who answer Amen after the bracha of Ahavah Rabbah, and some people who don't answer Amen after the bracha of Ahavah Rabbah. People don't answer Amen very often. What they do one of two things. Either they make sure to finish the bracha simultaneously with the Shliach Tzibur. Therefore, they're not going to answer Amen because they're finishing at the same time. There's no time for them to say Amen on the bracha. Or what they do in Chabad, which is very interesting, is that they say the last two words of the bracha silently. Yeah, and Habucher B'Amo Yisrael, actually one word. Habucher B'Amo Yisrael, and Ba'ava they say silently, so nobody can hear it, so nobody has to answer Amen. So there's a big machlokes with answer Amen. My minhag is to answer Amen to the bracha of Ahavah Rabbah. So, but since there is such a minhag not to, so the Yotzer gives is that you should finish the bracha saying Nashkel Tzibur, so everyone may answer Amen. Avim Sim Kodim Hashatz, when you finish before Nashkel Tzibur finishes, Roy Lanos Amen, it's appropriate answer Amen. Ava bracha ches lo Amen ben Ava Lishma. But on any other bracha, you should not answer Amen if it's between Ava, Rabbah, and Shema. Brachos on brachos Yochel the Emtza Perek. Only on the brachos which you're allowed to say Amen to if you're in the middle of a paragraph. Yochanos ben Ava Lishma, you can answer between Ava and Shema, which is basically two brachos. The Ato Kadosh, at Kadosh, you can say, even though you're in the middle of one of the paragraphs of Birchus Krishma, and you also can say between Abu Chama Yisrael Ba'ava and Shema Yisrael, or the Amen for Shomei Tefillah, which is the same status. Kamoshi's Bar Lahel, like it's been explained previously. Yachshov b'machshav tov. This is a fascinating idea. When you're about to say Ahavah Rabbah, you should think in your mind, Ani mechavein lichlol es atzmi im inu dohavin l'marayu. I have in mind to include myself with all those people who love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, one of the great madregas and HaMe'oros person we have is to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we want to be included in the entirety of the nation which loves Hashem. Okay. So that is the introduction to Ahavah. Now, he says, so we'll start Ahavah Rabbah. Let's go with the Anaf Yosef here. Kasav Agra, the Biur al Agada. The Gra writes in his explanation of the Agada, Piska v'Yisham Davosenu on the paragraph of Yishamda. Zeh shormin ba'boker. That which Nusach Ashkenaz says in the morning. Ahavah Rabbah, much love. Va'erev Avas Olam, eternal love. What's the difference? Why? Fisha Ahavah Rabbah, Fisha Ahavah Gedolim. Ahavah Rabbah means a great love. Va'avas Olam Ye'ena Ahavah Machmas Atzma. And the Rak Avasam Me Olam. It's not a love which is intrinsic. I should say, that's not going to say the right word. It's not a love which is in and of itself. Rak Avasam Me Olam, it refers to historical love. In other words, Ahavah Rabbah is a great love which has no definition and doesn't need any basis. It's just, like they say, a chemistry, a relationship, which is between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael. But Avas Olam means, no, this is a historical love which started way back when and continues to this day. So in the morning, which represents the time of Geula, because it's light. So therefore, it's a love in and of itself, because the love between Am Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the time of Geula is a love which is very, very appropriate and very, very easy to understand. But nighttime represents Golus. In other words, even though now we're not so worthy of love, because we're in Golus, but there's still this historical love which Hashem loved us in the past, which continues even now that we don't deserve it so much at this time. It's like Yirmiyahu says at the beginning of the Sefer. So remember that love, because Baruch Hu loves us with that great love which he had for us when he took us out of Mitzrayim, and we had bitachon in him, we trusted him, so that love continues, even though we're not on that same level now. So he says that that's the love of Golus, that even though we're not on the same level, it still echoes the great love which existed when we were worthy, when we were in a state of Gula. Okay? So he says, he promised that his love will be upon us, lola, forever. And this is not always because we deserve it, the contrary, probably don't deserve it, but because of our forefathers who HaKadosh Baruch Hu had this powerful relationship with, and we serve this Avos, and therefore Hashem loves us as well. So that is Ahavas Olam versus Ahavah Rabbah, according to the Gra. Ahavas Olam refers to a love which is eternal, but is really more based in the past, perhaps in the future, than it is in the present. Whereas Ahavah Rabbah is even a love in the present, and then the first is symbolic of the time of Golus, and the other symbolic of the time of Geula. There is a beautiful shot that Rabbi Shlomo Karabach, the singer, gives. He says, Ahavah Rabbah means a love which is greater than all the loves which were ever loved in the course of creation. And that love HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us is so powerful that any other love is just any other love is not comparable, because this is greater than any other love which HaKadosh Baruch Hu, any love which has ever been loved. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love of us includes it and exceeds it. Okay. So that's Ahavah Rabbah of Torah. Now, this is something which I want to mention, which is a very interesting point, which is that there are certain people who say that to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us is apikoros. Why is it apikoros to believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us? Because to believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us is ascribing attributes, emotions to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if you say HaKadosh Baruch Hu has emotions, they say it's the same thing like saying HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a body. Because emotions are a function of something which has a body, something which has a goof. And therefore, to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has emotions is apikoros, just like it's apikoros to say Hashem has a body, Hashem has any physical characteristics. It's apikoros to say Hashem has any emotional characteristics. And therefore, if you took this literally, like it says here, Ahavah above Hashem Elokeinu, according to this opinion, then you would be considered an apikoros. Because the thing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is this, as if he has a goof, as if he has a body, as if he has emotions. So there are people who actually believe this. I don't know how they actually believe it, but they do. So obviously they're right to a certain extent, which is that Hashem himself is beyond any concept of emotion. Emotion, by definition, comes from limitations and interactions between ourselves and others, and desires and aspirations, sometimes fulfilled, sometimes not fulfilled. And obviously with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all these kinds of give and take, wanting, not wanting, needing, not needing, something which is outside, something which is not outside of oneself, all these frame of reference is something other than oneself. All those things are not relevant to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's is Ein Sof, he has no end, but also Ein L'tchila, has no beginning either. He's beyond our capacity to define, and certainly we can, to speak about him as having emotions to a certain extent is a limitation on Hashem, and what they're saying does have some truth to it. But on the other hand, obviously HaKadosh Baruch Hu throughout Tanakh relates to us as if he loves us, as if sometimes he gets angry with us, and sometimes he's happy, sometimes he's sad, sometimes he's pleased with us, sometimes he's not pleased with us. So that's, although they're right in a theoretical sense, that there's no, Hashem is not subject to emotions, so he's not subject to a body. In another sense, they're wrong. Why? Because Hashem allows us and encourages us to think of him in that way in order that we should have a relationship with him. And therefore he says to us, you know what? when you do something wrong, you get angry. Chas Baruch Hu himself doesn't get angry. But if we do something wrong, we can't damage Hashem. So he gets angry if they feel insulted. But Hashem can't be insulted by human beings. But the pshat is that this is where Hashem gave us a way to relate to him, so that we can have a relationship with him and not just have it as an abstract concept, a God with which we have no type of relationship. So therefore, the Anshe Knesset Dafka specifically said, you know what? You're not responsible for davening to think about the fact that Hashem can have no emotions, no body, nothing to do with the limitations of people or entities that exist in this world. You think during davening, like Hashem permitted us to think about him as having a relationship with us. And you think that Ahavah Kodesh Baruch Hu, this is what you're supposed to think. That's why we're writing this in the Tefillah. Ahavah Rabbah of Ton Hashem Elokeinu. You love this with a great love. And that there is an emotional relationship between us and Kodesh Baruch Hu. And that it's the only way, really, in which one can develop an emotional relationship with Hashem. For most people, I should say, perhaps not for the Rambam. For most people, they only develop an emotional relationship with Hashem if you can feel that Hashem has an emotional relationship with you. So therefore, there's even the Torah said that, you know what, unlike other religions, we don't let you have any graven images, any pictures, any statues, any idols, any paintings. That you can't have, which is a big disadvantage for our religion, of course. Because other religions, if you want to love and venerate God, you can do it through love of the idol. You can do it through love of the painting. You can think of something to represent Hashem and focus on that. And that way come to love Hashem. But that's Avodah Zarah. So but by us, you're not allowed to use any type of image in order to focus on Hashem. Or you can, but you are allowed to perceive Hashem and we're encouraged to perceive Hashem as having an emotional relationship with us. So that's why, again, we say, Ahavah Rabbah of Ton Hashem Elokeinu. And I think there's actually a first place in davening when we mention Ahavah Rabbah, that Hashem loves us. I don't think in the Zimra we mentioned this, but we'll have to check and see for sure. It's a very interesting thing here in the first eight Yotzer. There's Ahavah Rabbah, Ein Zayin b'Ahavah Rabbah. There's no letter Zayin in Ahavah Rabbah or in the morning, Ahavas Olam at night. Letter Zayin doesn't appear in the whole paragraph. So why not? It's not the only one, by the way. In the capital of Yoshe B'Seiser Elyon, which we say in Sukkot Zimur Shabbos morning, we say Krishna Amita. A bunch of times we say also there's no letter Zayin. And the Forshim say there's no letter Zayin in that because it is the Yoshe says it's called Shir Shel Pegoyim, the song which protects us from damage. And the most damaging thing in the world are weapons. Weapons in Hebrew are clay Zayin, right? Because the sword looks like a Zayin. So therefore, it says that the letter Zayin doesn't appear in Yoshe B'Seiser, so it indicates that this Kapitel Tehillim protects us from weaponry. But here it's again no Zayin Ahavah Rabbah of us own, but it's a different message. He says the Sheva Avos Yesh Ba'olam. There's 7 great loves in the world. Avoh, father and mother. Achva Achos, brother sister. Ben Bas, son daughter. Chala So, and one's daughter-in-law. I assume it doesn't mean actually daughter-in-law. Assume it means one's wife, one's Chala. And all these 7 loves, one leaves. In other words, they're not comparable to the love which we have for Kodesh Baruch Hu. Now, it's a very high madrega, but that's the idea that that all the loves which we have are supposed to be just subcategories, so to speak, or lesser forms of the great love which we have for which Kodesh Baruch Hu has for us, right, and which we're supposed to have from Kodesh Baruch Hu. And that's what he says to Ahavah Rabbah, Al Shem Mayim Rabim Leichlu Lichabos Ahavah. Chazal, the pasuk says that much water can't extinguish the fire of the love between Kodesh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael. So that's what we're saying. This Ahavah Rabbah is so great. We saw there's no force which can overcome or undermine or defeat that Ahavah. Okay, I think we'll stop here for today and pick up with the main body of Ahavah Rabbah Mir Tashem next week. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night. Goodbye.